So today I'm going to make something for the Jeep, but for my dog. It is gonna be a bed that I'm gonna put in the back. I know you're probably thinking, you know, you can go buy those at PetSmart or whatever, but what I wanted was a bed that had a plywood base, just because it's gonna be in the back of the car. I don't really want it to move, or the back of the Jeep. And I thought a plywood base would be a lot better than something that's just material on the bottom. What I got is I have a 24 by 24 piece of plywood, pretty thin. I don't need it to be super thick. I have a 22 by 22 cushion. Ideally, I would have wanted a 22 by 22 piece of plywood, but I mean, I wasn't gonna have them cut that piece and I broke the freaking blade on my jigsaw, so I'm just gonna deal with it. This is 22 by 22. I got it at Hobby Lobby for $9.99 and 40% off, so about $5 or $6. And then here's the 24 by 24 piece of plywood. So the 22 by 22 is gonna fit nicely. It's not gonna be exactly flush, but it really doesn't matter. First things first, I will take this off. I actually looked at material that was made for like patio chairs and stuff like that, but I didn't like any of the material they had. In this bed, I don't expect it to stay super clean because it's for a dog and it's gonna be in the back of my Jeep. So I got a material that I liked. I didn't really care if it gets that dirty, or I don't care. I got a blue and white seersucker pattern, which is a yard and should be sufficient. So a yard is gonna end up being enough for 24 by 24, which again, that's what my plywood is. Still gonna put some adhesive underneath. Ideally spray adhesive would be fine, but it's at my parents' house for some reason, so I'm gonna use Mod Podge, which is dries as like a clear matte glue. Typically you put it over pictures, or if you're wanting to put a picture on something, you use that and it glues it to whatever you're doing it with. So in this case, it's gonna work with the foam and the plywood. So I'm gonna get a paintbrush and I'll be right back. Actually, I'm not going to use a paintbrush just because one of my hobbies is painting and my paintbrushes are really expensive and I don't want glue on them. So I'm just gonna pour it on there like that. And I am going to spread it across the plywood, the foam on the plywood. And I wanna try and leave the same amount of space all around, since like I said, it's 24 by 24 and my foam is 22 by 22. So now that that's on there, that's not going anywhere. It's gonna end up drying. But what I wanna do is make sure that my corners are pretty good, because that's where I would have a problem with lifting if it did decide to lift. So I've got the corners. This stuff dries pretty quickly. There's no sense in you waiting on it to dry because it's not gonna come through the foam and it's not gonna go through the back. I actually did my E30 trunk lid or whatever, deck lid, there you go. And this is pretty similar. I knew to stay away from like a super complicated pattern, because when you start stretching fabric and you move it, if you have a pattern, it's gonna look distorted. So the good thing about seersucker is it's not, you know, completely straight. It actually has like built-in wrinkles to it, so I liked that. But I'm gonna go get my staple gun and then we will start with covering the actual foam. So I'm gonna lay the fabric down. I'm gonna make sure that my sides are even. That way I have enough fabric on each side to pull completely over the board and the foam. I'm gonna attempt to get any wrinkles out. And of course, more wrinkles are gonna come out when I pull. And then I am going to hope to keep this in place and flip it on the front so I can staple the back. So first thing I'm gonna do, you could, if you wanted to, trim off any excess. I'm not going to, just because I don't see the purpose. Okay, so that's my starting point, which is one side. And fold over. Before I do decide to staple it, I'm gonna kind of look at the front. And again, I'll get some of those wrinkles out when I do the other side. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing. So now here comes the tricky part. I probably am gonna cut a little bit of this fabric because it's pretty long and it's gonna be unnecessary and it's gonna be easier for me to fold. It's almost like if you were wrapping a Christmas present. The longer the wrapping paper is, the kind of harder it is to manipulate and maneuver. So I'm gonna cut a little bit of this off and then I will pick back up to what I was doing. Okay, so I just cut my material. I cut about that much off. It's just gonna make it easier for me to fold and stuff like that. I'm gonna kind of fan it out and then worry about the corners in a second. I made it kind of lap over because I wanted to make sure that this was straight, and then I'll take care of these corners right here. I want to try something a little different on this side. All right, that looks pretty cool. The corners, it would have been so much better or easier if the plywood was the exact same of the foam. It wasn't, so I dealt with it. And all that really did was cause just a little bit of slack in the corners right here, which isn't that big of a deal. The dog won't typically be laying on the corners. He'll be laying in the middle or just across it like that. So I think this is gonna work out really well. The front turned out nice. No wrinkles, and again, with the seersucker, I was able to kind of, even if there were wrinkles, make it look like there wasn't. So it's nice and tight all over here. So that's it. I will go put it in my Jeep and show you guys what it looks like, and I hope it looks nice. All right, here it is, all laid out in the back of the Jeep. It fits perfect. I didn't even measure what this would be, but I obviously want to keep the toolbox here because I have stuff that I need. But it fits perfect between the wheel well and the toolbox, and I think it looks great. He's gonna end up liking it instead of having to lay on this hard tailgate of the Jeep. So 2.5 or 2-inch foam, 2-inch thick foam, 22 by 22. Ideally, again, you would want 22 by 22 plywood if you're putting it on plywood. My plywood was 24 by 24 and it still worked great. I'm very excited about this. I love it. I love the way it looks, and he is going to love it.